As we saw in the case of Thomas Eric Duncan, the Liberian man who made his way to Dallas, Texas, and was later confirmed to be sick with Ebola, it's believed that Duncan contracted Ebola while aiding his pregnant neighbor. That woman and her 7-month-old fetus died of Ebola just a few hours after contact with Duncan. A 1999 study of how a previous strain of Ebola affected pregnant women and their fetuses showed a death rate of 96%. But little is known even today about how the infection works on the bodies of expectant mothers. All we do know is that the fetus, if delivered alive, would likely be born infected with Ebola. The stages of Ebola are not very easy to diagnose, as it presents itself initially like a mild flu. Upon infection, the infected person doesn't even know that they're a carrier. Anywhere from 4 to 10 days later, the person will begin to feel like they've been hit by the flu. They'll exhibit typical flu symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, then later vomiting and diarrhea. By the second week, the person usually takes a turn for the worse, and their internal organs begin to leak fluids into the body. Some have described it as turning them to mush. By week 3, the person is in the final stages as the organs begin to shut down entirely, leading to death anywhere from 21 days following contraction to about a month. While the CDC continues to try to quell the fears of an Ebola pandemic here in the States, the way the case of Thomas Eric Duncan has thus far revealed to an already apprehensive American public, microbiologist and author of the germ code, Jason Tetro, told me that perhaps the fears are not as far-fetched as you might think.
Well, if you believe the CDC, this is an isolated incident. And to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of eggs on some people's faces down there in Dallas, Texas. But the reality is, they may not have a universal compliance. And if that's the case, then this could happen somewhere else. It shouldn't happen. And in places like Canada, where I am, it won't happen. And so this is even more frustrating to watch.
Tetro believes that there may be a systematic inconsistency that would allow people to go in America undiagnosed until it's too late, when the patient begins to exhibit signs of carrying the disease, which is when the person is highly contagious. Here are the facts of how a person contracts Ebola. The main source is through the contact of bodily fluids from an infected person. When they're feverish at around 101 degrees or higher, that's when they're essentially shedding the disease through blood, saliva, sweat, diarrhea, vomit, urine. It's best to avoid contact with people who are exhibiting symptoms that may appear like the flu, as Ebola requires about a week of incubation after the contact and contraction before a person even appears ill. So don't do any of the following. Don't have sex with, kiss, hug, share food, or even shake hands with someone who may potentially have been infected, as this disease can be spread by a sweaty palm alone. From Washington, Manila Chan, RT.